Hello, hello! Let's talk about Mother Whale once again. So, this is going to be a little different than usual. We are talking about Tetra Tower this time. I don't usually cover bosses for specific manufacturers. However, for this fight, it's kind of worth it. Because there is an actual strat for this fight with Tetra. If you're talking about Elysion, they don't really have one. It's more like guillotine, please. Fucking save me from this nightmare. And for Missilis, you need to actually have E-Leg with OL, with actual max ammo. It's fucking ass. But as far as Tetra is concerned, with a very low cost, and the low cost is you put a certain unit in your synchro chamber, you can actually clear this fight fairly well. It requires a bit of know-how, which is why this video came to be. This is a 100k deficit, give or take 15% deficit. It's not insane, but for Tower, 15% is pretty high if you're talking about anything but Pilgrim. So, I'd say that's pretty worth mentioning. So, let's talk about it, eh? And here you see that I have Ludmilla. I will talk about it once it's actually relevant, but here you just want to burst, obviously. You just use Alice. If you've seen me do any hard mode Mother Whale, you have an idea of what the fuck I'm doing here. Alice is a replacement for Red Hood. Blanc Noir is the healing process as well as like DPS increase instead of Crown and Naga. Oh well, not Crown and Naga. I suppose it was more like Tia Naga at the time. And Naga was just phased out completely. But the point still stands. You know, you have sustain, you have CDR, you have a main DPS unit. And yeah, this is one of those bosses that is very part intensive. It's like Crystal Chamber, Mother Whale is another example, Modernia to some extent is another example. You have, and Altessen actually is also a pretty good example. You have to break parts. Breaking parts actually destroys the fight. You do not care about your damage, really, which is why Alice is fine by herself as 1 DPS. At the end of the day, right, Alice is going to do maybe 200 bars of damage. Okay, maybe more like 300 bars of damage. And then you're going to do 800 bars of damage by breaking parts. So, you know, damage is not as big of an issue. It's more an issue of surviving and dealing with mechanics. So Alice, you shoot the ones on the right. You can shoot the one on the left, that's fine. So here, you see that those rocks are actually 2 separate attacks. You have 1 volley per sides that goes to 1 character specifically each, right? However, because you went full burst, you have taunt up on Ludmilla. So essentially, the second wave of rocks will all go to Ludmilla. Now you may think, she's gonna die. However, because she's been covering this entire time, the second wave, this one, is going to be attacking Ludmilla while she's covered. In other words, because they're targeting the cover itself, if Ludmilla is attacking, it will not kill her. It will destroy her cover, absolutely obliterate it, but that's fine. At 15% deficit, it's not a problem. And here it is. So, I've said before, when it comes down to Mother Whale, there's 3 ways to deal with mobs. An overwhelming amount of attacks, like with Modernia. Dorothy, this no longer works, and it's Pilgrim only anyway. It would be, in a way, you could say Trony would also work, but unfortunately, distributed damage does not work on mobs. Not anymore. So, yeah, it's been 2 months. 2 months since no fix. No fix. I've sent stuff to customer service. They just do not care, so it is what it is. Anyway, the third way is to have a delayed AoE. Damage calculated before the buff takes place. So, Ludmilla actually is one of those. She hits up to 10 target with a delayed AoE, and the delay is very long. So here, I use it. As you can see, I do like 28k damage, but because they only have 10 HP at this point, they instantly die. You do not want to go Blah right away or Noir right away. Just try to delay a bit for Blah, and then Noir will depend. So, here's the thing, right? If you want to know when to use Noir's Burst, pay attention to Mother Whale. It goes to the right and then back to center, right? Just a bit around the mouth. Wait just a little bit after that. What will happen is that it's more or less when it's about to burst, or when it's about to buff, which now is the time to burst. Because again, Noir is a delayed AoE, however the time delay is very short, so the window is a bit tight. Now, here, I'm going to explain a core mechanic most people don't even know or paid attention to. Burst Gen. So if you're using a sniper rifle or a rocket launcher, here's the thing that changes. This changed a few months ago. If the burst gen you're going to generate is dependent on how much charge you're at. So but it caps to the maximum without any OL or skill or whatever active. So essentially, Alice generates 3.5 times her burst gen if she's fully charged up. Okay? This does not count in PvP, if someone wonders. But it only works for if you're in control. If you yourself fully charge a shot, you are going to, in fact, generate more burst. So if you're in control of, say, Red Hood, and you do a full charge of 250%, you're going to do 250% burst gen, right? So here, what you do with Alice is when you're roughly at 40%, you start reloading. 40% burst. Then you charge. You keep it at 350, and then at the second the burst runs out, you shoot. Here you can see just how insane this is. Look at the burst gen. Yeah. This allows you to get back to the next burst right away. This is important. You have almost no time for this. The second you have, you're in burst with Ludmilla, you do not have time. You just do not have time. Ludmilla will not be able to kill all of them. There's this one here in front of Alice that's alive. But the ones that are dangerous are all dead. If you wonder which one of the mobs are very dangerous, it's the ones on the sides. So, these ones here. These one will one-shot your unit or two-shot them with a Mother Whale buff. They are extremely dangerous. Their attacks cannot be covered. And yeah, no, you need them dead. And Ludmilla just deals with all of them by herself, as you can see. The only one that's alive is this one, and this is a trash level mob. They do not do damage. Try to do as much as you can to do damage on the parts. Again, as you can see, Ludmilla is perfectly fine. She has damage taken down on herself whenever a full burst happens. So, she is able to take damage and be fine. For reference, my Ludmilla is, I think, 114, and she has 0 OL. She has Tetra manufacturer gear and nothing else. She is Garbo. Like, I have absolutely nothing on her and she survives. Here you can burst as fast as you can. It's completely fine. This is the elite spawn. Again, Ludmilla will show off why she's this good. Because you don't care about them. She puts a taunt up the second a full burst happens. So the entire elite mob is just gone. Here you burst as fast as you can. Once again, it takes time for everything to spawn. And then the boss is going to throw rocks at you. So you're mostly fine. And here, again, I did the same strat to generate burst. Keep in mind, when you're shooting with a full charge shot, you want to make sure to hit 2 ports. Because you have Pierce on Alice, you can hit 2 ports and the main body, which triples your burst gen. It's like you did 9 shot in 1. Actually, more like 10. And here, you can see me hit the bottom one as well as the middle one, because at that point, I can break both in time. Here, I just cover, it's fine. Again, doing the mechanics is more important than anything. Here, we use Noir to deal with the first wave. If you wonder why we're doing this, it's because breaking those parts here is super important, and we don't have any other way to deal with these mobs. You are on a timer. Effectively, if the boss spawns 2 waves of enemies, you are fucked. So here's another thing about Mother Whale that most people don't even know is a thing that it can do, because normally the mobs, the trash mobs, kill you before that's even a fucking factor. And I personally did not know, even after doing 2 hard mode guides. I had an inkling, but I only figured this out, like, really not that long ago. If you leave a batch of enemies alive, okay? If you leave a batch of enemies alive, and it does a buff, it self-buff its defense as well, to a point where you can't do damage. This is why on hard mode, I was unable to do damage at certain points if I went for the kill and I, didn't get the kill. So here you almost have no time. The next wave is the end of the fight, so you have to clear here, okay? This is tight on window. This is a tight window, but to be fair, I had 15% deficit. I was starting my burst with Alice. I'm pretty sure I would have been able to break that part and break an extra part on the right, okay? So it's not as tight as it looks. It really isn't as tight as it looks, okay? But it's pretty tight. But yeah, hopefully this is helpful for people who genuinely will struggle with this fight, because this fight, even if you're over deficit, by the way, you will struggle in this fight if you don't use Ludmilla. Ludmilla is the cheat code for this fight. And yeah, I hope this was helpful to at least some of you. And with that, I'm gonna call it there. I'll see you all next time. See you, everyone.